Welcome back to the Controller Project, part of the Able Gamers Charity Network. I want to say a big thank you to those of you who support me and everything I do on Patreon. It keeps me motivated, it's super helpful. And a super huge thanks to those of you who donate to Able Gamers so that we can keep on helping everybody be able to game. You'll find links to both of those down below. Today, I have a huge treat for you, an interview with an incredible guy that has figured out a sweet way to game with one hand.
Hi, I'm Jonah. I'm 13 and I love to game.
We're going to jump right into the interview without wasting any more time. So let's just get right into it. All right. It's wonderful to have you here. I'm so happy that you joined us. Let's start off. Just tell me, first of all, who are you and what kind of games do you like to play?
I'm Jonah and I really enjoy first person games, shooters specifically. I play Halo, I play the Halo campaign, play Halo Infinite, play Minecraft, it doesn't really count as a shooter. Um yeah.
So, first person shooters, lots of Halo, it sounds like. What's the oldest Halo you've played?
I'm currently doing a run through of Halo 1.
Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. All right. I'm an old guy. I remember when Halo was brand new. That was a very long time ago, and I can still remember how overpowered that pistol was.
I think I'm doing like a remastered version, but
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. So tell me a little bit about like what what the difficulties you have with gaming are. Like why are we talking in the first place? You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
what
Yeah.
why can't why does a normal controller give you frustration?
Yeah, so I don't have full control over my right side of my body, specifically my arm.
Hmm.
Typically, you would pick up a controller and use both of your hands to press buttons and do stuff.
Hmm.
Me, I can't do that. So we um yeah, we used Rewazd on this controller. Um
What brand is that? Is that like an 8-bit do or
Yeah, I can jump in. So I'm Jonah's dad, by the way. So I'm
okay.
just here to fill in some of the technical details. But yeah, so this is an 8-bit do
yeah.
controller. This is the Pro 2, and I think the thing that we were attracted to about this controller is that it has back buttons. So when Jonah's holding the controller with his left hand, because he's obviously not holding it with his right hand, he has one extra button that
Yeah.
he can press. It actually also has this like star button that you can control here too. And originally, we were playing this using 8-bit do's, 8-bit do or 8-bit do, I'd never know.
I
With,
don't know
with
either.
their remapping software. But as Jonah mentioned, we found, and we're doing this all on a PC, by the way. We found this software called Rewasd, Rewasd,
Yep.
that allows us to do a ton of remapping of the
Yes.
controller. And do you want to show the
Yep.
other piece that's critical here?
We started with a single foot switch, but we upgraded to
Got three.
three. It's a lot bigger than it looks, I think. Um, we're still trying to work it out because occasionally when I'm playing Halo, I try to scope and I accidentally throw a grenade at my teammate. So,
Well, so tell me a little bit about that. It sounds like the way you put that, it sounds like both of those are maybe functions on the pedals.
yes. So the
Okay.
pedal has for typical first person shooters, the pedal would have a sprint, a scope, and some sort of grenade or explosive. Um and yeah, because all the pedals are the exact same, I never know which one my foot is on. So
It's a bit of a trap.
occasionally I just have to use my foot to feel around, but it's seriously helped me out a lot.
So
And
what
it's actually pretty recent too. Now
Yeah,
I think
that we
about
that
it.
we added the foot. So what's super cool about this is that the combination of like the left side of the controller, all of the buttons on the left side of the controller, plus the back button, plus three extra buttons on the foot switch, all glued together with this Rewazd
Yeah.
application, gives Jonah pretty much like
Yes.
full control. And I mean, like watching Jonah rip through Halo Infinite is like such a prideful moment for me because he's awesome. He destroys me,
Nice.
by the way.
Nice, nice.
We tried gyro at one point, but that didn't work out very well. It didn't really fit the way I like to play. I've gotten so used to the controller that I can put the controller behind my back and still play perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Um,
So when you said you tried gyro, are you talking about like the controllers you
yeah.
can tilt?
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like there's always a weird lag in that. I don't know if it's
Yeah,
because of
there
the
was a
yeah.
little bit of a lag, I think.
Yeah.
Um, that's one of the reasons. There was also the challenge of the sensitivity. That's always impossible to get it right.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, eventually it just didn't work out. I went back to my normal controller, and yeah.
Well, that's actually a really good thing to talk about. Are there some other things that you've tried that did not work for you?
So, as I mentioned, originally we had just one foot switch.
It was like a single button foot
Yeah,
switch.
yeah, it was the same thing. It just had one button. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that was great, but it did not having only one button, it didn't do everything I needed it to accomplish. So I did not have a grenade. I did not have And I did not have a sprint for a very long time. And in first person shooters, that limits what I can do a lot.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
also 3D printed the Xbox controller mod. I think it's the Akaki.
Akaki?
Yeah,
Yep.
Akaki, yeah. And we played around with that. I mean, that is an amazing
Yeah.
piece of engineering. I mean, it
Yes.
really is incredible. But I think, I mean, you can talk about this more, but I think it just
Yeah.
didn't feel comfortable. You were just so used to just like holding the controller as a controller that all of the extra spaces on it that you needed to interact with just didn't
Yeah.
really work out
So,
for, yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
go ahead.
So, like I've mentioned, I've just gotten used to playing with a regular controller and foot switch without any modifications or weird buttons or 3D printing stuff. I've just gotten used to just playing with a regular controller.
Yeah, yeah, that's fantastic. And it really is the best solution because then you're not beholden to getting something 3D printed or having it, having that item. You
Yeah.
can just buy off the shelf parts. That's fantastic. And we don't recommend the Akaki controller to everybody. I do frequently because it's easy for me to 3D print one and send to someone. But for many people, using a dual controller setup, which is very similar to what you have, where you can actually just use two Xbox controllers with an Xbox and put one on the floor, and I make a pedal set for it that hits buttons or hits triggers.
I don't think we've seen that. That's really cool.
That
Yeah, well, I mean, we can absolutely talk about sending you one so you can try it out if you want to play console, and you can play exactly the same way you are now, more or less, on Xbox.
Uh-huh.
It's just a pedal set for the Xbox.
That is
But
really cool. Yeah, we would love to get more
Oh
information
yeah.
about that. I think one of the things that was really sort of like a game changer, no pun intended, was when we figured out. So the main mapping on this, and again, Joan would know better than I do, but like
Yeah.
we swapped the sticks so that the left stick is look around,
Yeah,
whereas typically the left stick would be move your character. So the left stick is now move around, which means that the character,
stick
or
is-
sorry,
yeah.
left stick is look. So now the character can't move. So what we mapped was the top buttons, the shoulder button
Yeah.
and the trigger button is move forward
Move
and
backward.
then move backward. So
Yes.
like, because that's really in a first person shooter, that's what you're doing. I mean, obviously you're shooting, but like you need to be really like agile and movable with your character constantly. So
Mhm.
I think originally we tried to do some stuff where like the D-pad was moved, but then you had to move your thumb back and forth. So just having your thumb constantly on the look around and then being able to move
Yeah.
backwards and forwards was really like the aha moment for us. And
Okay.
then
So yeah, that's another thing where for first person shooters, if you're like in a fight, you really can't stop moving.
Hmm.
So we had to configure it so that something that I would have to do, like be running to jump over a pit, I can't have my jump button and my move button be accessible with the same finger because that wouldn't work.
Yep.
So that's a struggle sometimes because I only have so many fingers. And There's quite a bit of buttons. So we've gotten it now so that it works, but I can't for example, I can't look and strafe at the same time because I use my thumb for both of those.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think so what did you map strafe to?
Strafe is the left and right on the D-pad.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was just one of those, like, I mean, this is, as I think probably much of your audience knows, this is sort of a work in progress, right? We're
Oh, absolutely.
constantly like changing the way we've mapped things out. And I think right now we've sort of settled on left and right and the
Yes.
D-pad being strafe, which
Yeah.
again isn't ideal because ideally you would want like quicker access to that, but Jonah would have to move his thumb from the thumbstick, which is move around, to strafe.
Yeah.
But it's one of those compromises that I think is, we're open to other suggestions, but I think that's a decent compromise for still giving you the ability to like move back and forward super quick. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Another thing that we figured out is the right shoulder button. So typically how I hold my controller is I hold it in my left hand and I rest the other side, which would typically be held with my other hand, on my right leg.
Yep.
So if I can push the right, I can't really show you, but I can push the right shoulder button with my right leg
Yep.
very easily. It's very easy to access that.
Right.
So that's very, very helpful.
What
It's
is that
really
maps
like
to?
that's in Halo, it's typically my item. So like a grappling hook or something.
Okay.
So
And
it's
just
typically not something I have to hold down because holding it down and moving everything else, it's kind of jittering the controller and it kind of disrupts it. So it's usually just something that I just press once and then yeah.
We'll
okay.
do it for you.
So just a technical question on that. Are you using your left hand to push it against your right leg, or can you use your right leg to push the button? I
I'm
know it's a
so
tiny little detail.
I'm using my hand to kind of
Push
mold
it like that.
the
Yeah.
controller.
So it's all in your wrist then. Like mentally, everything's going through your left arm for all of these things. And now also that, yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, some of these bring up some good points of stuff we could talk about, like your frustrations with your current setup. I'm curious, have you used, so right now you've got one paddle on the back, which means you've got two fingers that are wasted, right? Have you thought of using a controller that has two paddles on the back? I don't even know how you would hold the controller if you're using all
We
those fingers though.
do
Like it would fall out of
actually
your hand.
have so we do actually have one of those. It's it's one paddle, but the one paddle has two different buttons.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not the placement isn't
It's
great.
it's not the most comfortable, but
Okay.
those two extra fingers I just use to hold the controller. If I was using them for something else, I would be like dropping the controller yeah.
And
Yeah, yeah.
I think when Jonah's hands get bigger, I think we might have some success with, like, I think it's the Xbox Elite controller maybe that has like two sticks on the back, two like paddles on the back, I mean.
Mhm.
So but I think right now the single button works okay. We have this other controller that's this. It's like it's got a trackpad on the right hand side. I actually use this for my gaming, and Jonah's brother uses this, but we tried this one because there's a lot of buttons here, and also conveniently on the left hand side there are two buttons here. And again, Rewaz, being our application that glues all of this together, recognizes this controller. And this is the one actually I think we experimented with gyro because it has gyro in it.
Yes.
But I think and again, you can answer this better than I can, but I think you just felt so much more comfortable holding an actual
Yeah.
controller that had the palm part that just fit in your hand better.
Yeah.
Whereas something like this is a bit clunky and
Yeah.
sort of a bit of a compromise.
This was another reason why we kind of started to strafe away from the gyro is because there's like so many buttons on this one side on the
Yeah.
left side. So I kind of like on this I use the right paddle button. I had to move that onto the left side. I had to move like every single thing because okay, I still use the right side of the controller for like inventory stuff or menus. That's what I'll use the right side of it for, but for in-game.
Yeah.
But considering the fact that this thing only has 4 really actual buttons on the right side, we had to move everything onto the left
Yeah.
side, and it just made it. I would try to hit a button and I would like open the menu and pause the game accidentally because there's just so many buttons.
So
Yeah.
I think this sort of like underscores the idea that this is an evolving thing. We're Jonah has a setup that works pretty well right now, but like we're still experimenting with new gear and new ways to configure things. And I mean, for me, I know this is about you, but it's kind of fun, right? It's kind of like well, let's try this and let's see if this works. No, this doesn't work good. Oh, but this is a really exciting direction to try, and it just kind of like makes the whole process sort of exciting because we're working on it together to make your gaming experience better.
Yeah.
So what I would like to do, since you're on the topic of what you're trying and maybe some slight frustrations of stuff that you have with the current configuration, I'd like to just tell you about some other options. There's a good chance you already know about them. There's a good chance you might try them and hate them, or they're too expensive or too stupid or don't fit you. But this also helps other people to hear these ideas.
Yeah, lay it
So
on
let's just talk a little bit about some of the things that are out there that you might enjoy. You mentioned earlier, like you get a little confused, or not confused, but with the foot pedal, sometimes like you mean to run and you hit a grenade or vice versa or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So one thing that I've seen that can help with that is instead of having the pedals side by side like this, is you have one vertical on the side. Now your pedals may be too strong for this, but you can get lightweight. I'll get to this in a minute. You can get lightweight buttons that are really easy to push, and you put one up on the side on either side. So the action is different. Instead of going push, 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 the action is just push or smack this way or smack that way, right? So your brain processes it differently and you don't mix them up anymore. And if you're going that route, you can even do one forward. So you're tapping forward, you get an extra button. And you could do one like up
Pretty cool.
on top of your foot.
Yeah.
And you get an extra button there, right? And it's just a matter of how you mount them, right? Now those pedals probably won't work because I'm guessing they're kind of hard to push.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so that you don't accidentally push them.
They're stiff.
Yeah. But if you were to, and this might be too expensive to even play with, if you were to get one of these, this is the Xbox Adaptive Controller, it's $100, right?
Yeah.
And as is, it's not going to help you a lot, except it does have 2 buttons already. If you were to get one of these or the Hori Flex, which is the same thing, but it works on Nintendo Switch and PC, it has all these places where you can plug in buttons, and you can do so many crazy things with this. For example, you could put a series of buttons all around your foot that you could be hitting with your toes that are small and easy to click buttons. I had one sitting right here, but I just like shoved everything off of my desk to put my streaming rig here, so I don't know where it went. But they have these little buttons from Logitech that it's like $100 for a whole kit of buttons that you could plug into it, and you could set them all around, but they don't even have to be by your foot. They could be by your elbow or by your head or something like that, right? Now it starts to get complicated. It starts to get expensive, but it's also the kind of thing that's kind of fun to play with because not only can you do buttons, you can do joysticks. So strafing, for example, you could have a little one right here and strafe with your chin.
That's true.
While you're playing.
Yeah.
And it just plugs into that adaptive controller, and they're not hard to make or buy. Just these little, it's the same thumbstick that's in the Xbox controller. And then you could put it anywhere. I mean, it could be on your knee or your elbow or whatever, and you could be strafing that way.
Yeah, the Xbox Adaptive Controller is something that I don't know if you and I have talked about it, Jonah, but I know of it, and it is one of those things where it's like we just haven't gone down that route yet, and not for any particular reason, but it's such a cool product because it's like ultimate flexibility. I mean, you can plug anything into it and set up your own custom system. I think the reason why we haven't gone in that direction is, well, price, because it adds up every time you plug something in. But I think one of the things that's appealing about our setup is that we've got like two pieces, so we've got, and everybody's setup is totally different, and our setup is less permanent. Every time it's game time, bring all the gear out. But I think one of the disadvantages that we would have in our setup is that we would have to configure everything again every single time. So I think what's appealing here is that we've got these two pieces, got the controller, which is wireless, and then we plug in the foot switch, and we're just ready to go. But the Xbox adaptive stuff is really, really impressive. Like, I keep watching Craigslist, seeing if like somebody's gonna like put one up there for like real cheap or something like that. I think we'd experiment with it.
What you described was exactly the major issue that I have with a lot of these setups is you're in a place where you can get by with basically stock controllers, and that really is ideal, because the Xbox it's just overwhelming in every aspect, like all the wires and all the
But
buttons.
amazing that that product exists. I mean, amazing, and that it's literally like unlimited flexibility. If you need a custom type of switch, you can have someone like you or the folks that you work with, your colleagues, create something and plug it in, and there you go. You've got a switch where you can move it with your head or like activate it with your knee or something. That's just incredible.
That's really all the recommendations. I mean, like 3D printing is a great thing to like add some ease. For example, you could put a big bumper on that right shoulder button so that it's easier to bump it on your leg without accidentally hitting other stuff. But you don't even really need a 3D printer for that. You could just take a hot glue gun and just build it up a little bit real quick and easy if that's an issue. I might have misunderstood what you said earlier with bumping it. It sounded like you said maybe you accidentally hit other stuff, but if that's not even an issue, don't even stress. But for other people who might run into that issue of, I know a lot of people with Duchenne's muscular dystrophy who use this part of their hand to hit buttons. And on the top of that controller, you can accidentally bump the wrong buttons. And 3D printing is great, and I love it because that's what I do. But some of the best solutions are literally just hot glue on top of those buttons to build them up and spread them apart a little bit, make them a little easier to hit or feel. And for your foot, you can actually do the same thing. You can use hot glue to do like two big blobs on one pedal, one big blob on the other, so your foot can feel the difference as you slide your foot over. Just little tiny solutions. Or get spray paint in bright neon colors, and your peripheral vision will pick it up as you move your foot around, and it'll keep them apart a little bit easier. You don't think you can see them, but if they're bright neon, you can, and you won't even be thinking that you're seeing them, but your brain can separate them a little bit easier. And again, all of this stuff might not apply to you, but other people watching this might get those tips and use them.
Yeah, no, that's great. And like I said, it's an evolution. Like, our setup is still evolving. So like trying something like that sounds like a great idea.
Yeah.
So here's something I think is fun to do in these videos, and that's kind of like, I should have sent this to you ahead of time so you could think about it. But like, is there anything that you could think of that would just be awesome to suddenly exist to solve a problem that you have with how you game? Like some specific kind of button or way the controller could be mounted or something. Like for example, if the controller was on a stand, would that be easier for you, or would that maybe be harder for you because then you couldn't bump it or something?
So I think I've mentioned this maybe, but this basic controller, it really works for me. Like with Rewazed, I really don't think there's any specific new buttons that I need. It might be interesting to try having both the joysticks on one side.
Mm-hmm.
That might exist. It might be cool.
Would you want to use your thumb for both of them, or would you want one like on the bottom so that you're moving the whole controller, or a finger or something?
So I think I would use one of them for like my main gaming, But then, so so these sticks, I can
Mm-hmm.
push them in as buttons.
Mm-hmm.
So if I had two of them, one of them, it just gives me another button on that side. And plus, when I'm in like the menus, oh, okay, like for Minecraft, when I open my inventory, I need to put my hand on the other side of the controller, like
Mm-hmm.
here, and
Mm-hmm.
use the right joystick and the A and B buttons to navigate my inventory. It'd be easier if I could just map both of those onto the other side and have the joystick on the other side. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but for games other than Minecraft, that would help. Yeah.
I see. So you're having to set down the controller and then reposition your hand to
Yeah.
hit those and then pick it back up to game.
I've gotten pretty used to it. I can do it pretty quickly, but like if I'm playing Minecraft in like survival or something, I typically like box myself in before I do it because, if I get attacked, like
Yeah. 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 Well, I mean, there's so many things that you can do because you're capable and you're probably learning very quickly how to adapt to these things. But they could always still be easier and better, right?
yeah.
Even if you don't feel like you really need it, it could be nice not to have to adapt in those ways.
Yeah.
Um, that's a good one. That's an interesting one. And for some people I've seen, I brought this up a minute ago, putting the controller on a stand can help because it gets rid of that putting it down and picking it up aspect. You literally just like move your hand. Like it's that quick, right? And you just like shoot your hand over. And you
Yeah.
can do a stand that kind of sits under you can't see my hands, that sits under your legs. So it holds it right in the place you want it to be. You know what I mean? Like the comfortable
Yeah.
place you want it to
Yeah.
be. And that might be something to try, but then that would limit your ability to bump that shoulder button.
So, yeah, I think I use my leg in that way where the controller is always resting on my leg.
Yeah.
When I'm trying to um do inventory stuff, I can just drop it.
Yeah.
It'll just stay on my leg. I can just drop it and then move my hand over.
Okay.
Like, so my leg is already doing, I think, what you are suggesting,
A
Stan.
lot of that. Yeah.
Finding Rewazd was like again like one of those like game-changing moments for us. I don't know if you've ever used it. It is not an easy system to work with, but once you get it and it all like fits together, it's like, oh,
Yep. Yep. I've seen that a lot. There's a little bit of a learning curve there.
there's a bit of a learning curve. Yeah.
So the Microsoft Adaptive Controller is good and has a lot of options for it for Xbox, but there is another option. Not everybody knows this, but you can use two controllers as one on the Xbox.
Oh,
So a lot of people with very similar gaming styles to you, Jonah, will get an Xbox and just literally mount a controller on the floor and use their foot on the controller on the floor with no modifications to the controller at all because you can just use your toe to hit buttons. So they'll do the D-pad or a thumbstick with their toe on
That's
the floor.
very cool.
And that's it. That's just there. If you get an Xbox and two controllers, you can just turn it on and you just use the two controllers as one controller. It's called Copilot. And you can do it with two standard
oh
controllers.
yeah,
You can
yeah.
do it with an Xbox adaptive controller and a regular controller. And so you might look into that because that I think with what you're doing right now, I think you could do that exact same thing on an Xbox with two standard controllers
Huh.
with the way you game right now.
Yeah.
And then you could have the full, Xbox capabilities.
Yeah, yeah.
Another thing, if you haven't seen it, is the Sony adaptive controller.
No, I don't think we've seen that one.
Okay, so if you're interested in PlayStation, everything I just said, I think applies to Sony as well now. They released this. This is the Sony adaptive controller. All of these white things are buttons, and this is a button. And it has a thumbstick with different toppers you can put on it. So you could put a little flat one if you were using your toe, and you can literally hit all these buttons easily with your toe and do a thumbstick with your toe as well. And I think you can use this and this standard controller together as one controller. I think. I need to verify that. But that would get you the same exact thing you're doing now on PlayStation.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
we have not seen that.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a cool one. Yeah.
Let's see. Another thing, I mentioned it earlier, I'll explain it a little better now, is there's a kit that I give away to people free that is I can't remember the woman's name who designed it, but I'll link it down below. It's two foot pedals that can attach to an Xbox controller, and you can choose if they push the triggers or if they push two buttons on it. It would be like a D-pad button and a button on the XYAB or two triggers. But the downside is it's only two pedals, and you are already used to three, so you're already ahead. But the upside is it would be Xbox,
Yeah.
native on the Xbox, without modifying the controller. So you could just take your controller. It's a standard controller that just drops into it. But I think being able to do co-pilot might be something you might enjoy if there's Xbox or PlayStation games you feel like you're missing out on. I think you can reproduce your same gameplay style just right out of the box with an Xbox now.
Interesting.
That's awesome. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's you've all heard me blab enough. That's everything I have. Is there anything else you want to throw out there about your gaming experience or tips or tricks?
So something did occur to me that we didn't mention while we were talking about upgrading to the triple foot switch.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why we did is because the single one moved a lot. So the wire was stiff. Okay. I have the cord would plug into my computer that was to the right of me, and the cord was stiff, so it'd be every time I would hit the foot switch, which happened quite often because it was my scope.
Uh-huh.
Every time I would hit it, it would shift it to the left. It would like kind of like tilt it to the left a little bit and push it out. So when I'm like holding it down, it's just sliding outward to the point where I have to like grab it and like bring it back. Yeah, and if I don't have my foot on it, it will still shift. So I go back to stomp on it and it's not there.
Yeah,
I
it doesn't
got
help
something
that
for
we
you.
have it on carpet.
I got something for you though. I
But
got
I
something for you.
checked on the bottom of this one, and this one has little you probably can't see them, but it has little like rubber
Yeah. But it
thing.
still moves, right? Like
Not
on your
as much.
carpet. Yeah.
Not as much.
I think just the size of it keeps it
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
a stationary place more than the smaller single foot switch would.
Yeah.
So one solution I've seen people do, which works really well, is you just get a nice heavy welcome mat and you just hot glue it or staple it or zip tie it to
Good
one
idea.
end of it, like long ways, so that your foot is on it too. You know, like it tucks under a sofa or under a chair, so it's sticking out.
Yeah.
And your foot being on it too helps keep it from moving it and being a nice heavy welcome mat also. But it's also still mobile enough you can take it and throw it, you know, up under the desk or whatever when you're not using it. That's one solution I've seen that works pretty well for people. I've seen people say, you know, you can buy little rubber feet that are stickier or do Velcro or whatever, but usually the size of a welcome mat is what really helps. Like you've seen the difference between 1 foot pedal and three pedals.
Yes.
When you make that, you know, 2.5 feet wide in all directions and you have all that extra mass holding it down. That'd be something you might want to try if you experience it more, especially as you get bigger and stronger, you're going to be kicking those pedals around more. Yeah, that is a good one. Any other frustrations or ideas?
Not really, no.
Okay, okay. All right. Well, I think this went fantastically. I want to thank you so much for sharing your stories with me. You know, I asked earlier if there was anything you wanted to promote. You don't have a stream or a YouTube channel or anything, so I
Not
guess there's
yet.
nothing to really promote. So we'll just say, you know, keep on gaming and having fun. And thank you so much for sharing your story with other people here. I hope that some of these things help some other gamers, because I've seen a little bit of you playing, and I saw people's responses on Reddit when they saw you playing, and I can see that already people were like, "Oh crap, I can do this." Like, "Oh look, oh, that's how he's holding it. I can do that." And so
Yeah.
I think this is going to help even more people, and I'm really just happy you shared it with us.
Well, thank you so much for reaching out. This is the I think, I don't want to speak for Jonah, but I think we're super excited
Yeah.
to share this setup
Yes,
with everyone.
definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for watching. Again, if you were to donate to Able Gamers, that would be wonderful, and it would help us continue to support gaming for everyone, regardless of their disability. Thank you so much. Be sure to let me know if you have any advice for Jonah or any ideas for his gaming setup or questions you have that I might be able to address in other videos. We'll see you on the next video.